really a pleasure today to have Haris Kalofonos with us, the Chief Technology Officer of the International Olympic Academy, who will be talking to us about how he's contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. Welcome, Haris. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for the time.
I want to ask you, first of all, as the CTO of the International Olympic Academy, could you share your vision for rethinking Olympic education in the modern world? What key aspects do you believe need to be addressed to ensure the Olympic values resonate with the youth and diverse global communities?
The modern revivers of the Olympic Games believed that there needs to be a link between the origin of the ancient games and the modern games. That's why they have decided to invest significant resources and time to make sure that people fully understand and know where the Olympics begun, where the idea of excellence, friendship, and respect actually resonated. And that was no other place but ancient Olympia in Greece. In 1961, the International Olympic Academy was founded not too far away from the site where today we light the Olympic torch every couple of years. And this is an event that happens about 2 months before the opening of the Olympic Games. Yeah. There is a moment in time where the entire world focuses in ancient Olympia. Beyond that, it's a small village in the western part of Greece, but the International Olympic Academy has a campus there since 1961, and it's hosting executives and friends of the Olympic movement and family to be able to disseminate Olympic values.
That's amazing, and I know that students participate in that all year, and you have a vision to expand that even more.
Exactly. So to go to your initial point of question, how do we rethink Olympic education within the framework of the International Olympic Academy? You can envision a place that since 1961, it was rather like a traditional university, like a think tank of ideas, where people would come together, network, exchange opinions, maybe create some basic presentation. But the modern world needs us to go faster, stronger, and higher, as we say in the Olympics. So what we want to do is to be able to expand the platform, to be able to disseminate the essence and the values of the Olympics beyond the borders of the campus. This is where technology and all the digital assets that we have come in place. Now we want to be able to reach people all around the world before they arrive to the Olympic Academy, to be able to get a glance of what it is to be there, to be able to augment their understanding about the Olympic movements, but above all, to be able to connect with what it really means to be part of the Olympic movement. So technology is used as a platform to scale existing education programs, kind of like stretch them so people can be introduced to them before they arrive there, but also stay connected with the academy after they leave.
That's amazing. So the International Olympic Academy plays a crucial role in promoting Olympic values in education. Now, how has the Academy evolved over the years, and what innovative approaches have been adopted to meet the evolving needs of participants and stakeholders? You mentioned, for example, the ability of technology to scale and bring information so that they have it ahead of time. How else has this evolved over the years, or is it now in the process of evolving?
Well, when we look back, back in 1961 and throughout the 60s and 70s, there were tents. Slowly, the International Olympic Committee, with the support of the Greek Olympic Committee and other funders and donors throughout the world, start creating an actual campus. Initially, they created some rooms, then they created a place for to be able to eat. And then before you know it, within 3 decades, this was a full-blown campus that has sport facilities, that has its own amphitheater, that has about 300 rooms to be able to host people there, that has its own cafeteria, it has gardens and yards, etc., etc. It's a full-scale campus. What it didn't have from back in the day was the technology elements to be able to scale the experience. So what we're now doing, for example, is all the events are live streamed. You can go to the website, which is ioa.org.gr, and engage with the material from an archive perspective and see what happened all the way back to 1961 and even beyond. You can connect with the documents and the elements of the first revivers of the Olympics, of how they envisioned the Olympic movement to essentially be an educational movement for prosperity and peace around the world. Today, specifically speaking, we have a website, we have the streaming capabilities, and we also have online courses. And online courses is something that now is starting to become a standard, but it's a rather new concept, an idea within the Olympic movement, where we want to capture the amazing stories that move us and athletes that are true inspiration in order to be able to share everything that happens there way in advance of somebody arriving to the academy. And we have to be honest, not everybody can come to Ancient Olympia in Greece. It's not per se an easy trip, and it's not just a walk in the park, especially from people from the United States or from part of Asia. But through the website, through all the things we do that are technologically based, people can touch what we would call the heart of the Olympic movement.
And be part of that. And sounds great for the youth, but I hope that those will be offered for adults as well.
Yes, the website is it has all the modern capabilities, not just for youth and adult, but also for people with certain needs and disabilities.
Yeah, and you mentioned before technology and scaling, and with the advancements in technology and the rise of digital learning platforms, how do you envision incorporating these new technologies other than scaling? You mentioned online courses into the Olympic education curriculum. What role do you see technology playing in enhancing the learning experience for aspiring athletes and future Olympic leaders? You talked a lot about engagement and ahead of time for being part of the Olympic experience, but what about with the athletes?
Well, the mission of the Olympic Academy is to primarily disseminate Olympic values. What does that really mean? That is a quest that has been going on for the past now 60 years. But if we break it down to its most fundamentals, the Olympic values are friendship, excellence, and respect. How do we transcend to people what this really means in your everyday life, right? So when we talk about respect, we really talk about connection.
Yeah.
We really talk about simplicity. When we talk about the friendship, we really talk about equity. We really talk about resilience. When we talk about Olympic values in general, it's a way of life. So what we have done with the help of technology by creating both analog and digital modalities, we try to replicate the mental growth an Olympic athlete goes through, right? An Olympic athlete is not some superficial human person that has, lived in Mars all their life and just came to the stadium and run. They're everyday people like us. And what they do, how they live their lives, has a certain attribute that we can take. So what we've done is we've emulated the mental growth of an Olympic athlete, which is, of course, connection. They need to be able to connect with the world. Simplicity, which means they need to be able to remove the everyday noises and focus on what matters and create a plan of decisioning. Then they need to be creative. They need to be able to always think of different ways to train and get an edge. They need to be innovative, to be able to work within existing elements and try to shape them to their needs. Above all, they need to be resilient. But lastly, they need to have a sense of reflection so they can always apply what they've learned. To us, those are the applicable pillars or means of the base of the Olympic values. So you have the Olympic values, and then you have their applications, and then you have the technology, whether it's through blogs, articles, or through online courses, that through small exercises and questions that make it part of who you are. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to just share someone else's story. If we don't own the stories, if we don't resonate with it, it's just another lecture. So what we try to do is we try to shape the questions within the Olympic format, but to make sense and to be relevant for every person.
So these are skills that can be used anywhere at any time.
Well, the Olympic movement was an educational movement, right? And Pierre de Coubertin and Dimitrios Vikelas, the founders of the Olympics, that was their initial intent. A couple 200 years ago almost, they did a speech in Sorbonne. The speech was about an educational reform around the world. How could we have peace and prosperity? How can we have understanding? How we can bring nations that were once, rather intense to be able to compete in the same field and understand each other. Sports has always done this throughout the ages, right? The ancient Olympics had what we would call the sacred truce, and that was a time where when the Olympics were going on, wars were not allowed, and that was considered sacred. In our modern time, of course, things are challenging when it comes to that perspective, but we believe that the Olympics allows or brings together people in that platform trying to be able to revive the principles of what the Greeks conceived, and I'm sure other nations at the time also had in place.
Yeah, and in recent years, there's been a growing emphasis on sustainability and social responsibility in various sectors, including sports. How is the International Olympic Academy incorporating these themes into its educational programs and promoting the importance of sustainability within the Olympic movement? You mentioned some of those possibilities, but how are you actually incorporating these, I guess, by developing these skills?
Well, we have to go back to what is the Olympic Academy,
Yeah.
right? The Olympic Academy is a campus that can host about 1,000 people. It has about 300 rooms. It has a cafeteria. It has certain facilities, and it has a big amphitheater and a library. Within that context, the Olympic Academy can serve as an example of how sustainable practices that are revolved around facilities, around energy, around the way we consume water, around the ways of not leaving the air condition all the time, et cetera, et cetera. So the campus itself becomes a living example of how we apply sustainable practices. And in most cases, to people that come from all around the world, they can see, oh, this is how they do it here. This is something really interesting. We can take it back to our sport facilities, etc. So the Academy is the true exemplifier of bringing the sustainable practices for real life examples.
Yeah, that's amazing because even our students, here, they try to find ways to make the campus more sustainable. So these are good examples to live by. Now, you mentioned earlier the Olympic values of excellence and friendship and respect, and they're deeply embedded in the Olympic ethos. How does the International Olympic Academy cultivate these values among participants and empower them to become ambassadors of positive change in their respective communities after completing the training that you mentioned?
So the Academy, once you go to the Academy, you immediately meet your fellow participants. Everybody has, what we would call a credential, and they have a bio, and they have also presence on the website. But what the Academy does, and what we do also in our online courses, we immediately divide people into smaller groups, right? Think about a conference where you have all of a sudden 200 people.
Yeah.
If we were just doing lectures, you're kind of, maintaining a silo. Well, typically in a 200 set format, we break teams, in 6 or 7 teams. You have 10, 15 groups, and then you give them to work on certain projects throughout the entire session. So this is the way for, the participants to be able to apply the values of excellent friendship and respect by working in smaller teams to present a common project or capstone related thing that they're going to do. This has been a common practice over the past decades, and now we're doing the same thing online, where you might have a cohort of people registering for an online course, but once they start, they are broken into groups and they work together. And of course, there's always a coordinator. In most cases, that somebody that has gone through the Academy that really understands what the Olympic movement is all about, to kind of coordinate the conversation and kind of set the rules of engagement, so to speak.
Well, I hope more and more youth take advantage of this opportunities. It sounds like these are really good values to live by. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I wish you the best in your endeavors and your vision. I'm sure it will be very fruitful. The road will be very fruitful. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And just a message to the world, right? The Olympic Academy is a place that is open to the world. It's not just for the Olympic family. You can easily find them on the website, ioa.org.gr, or just look on Google, International Olympic Academy. You can host your own events and sessions there. It's an amazing place to be, and it is a milestone in anyone's life to be able to see where the Olympic movement originated and how the values of, to some extent, what the Western world was shaped, where did they actually took place 3,000 years ago. So I hope to see more and more people, educators, students, at least try to visit or come in contact with the Academy.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you for listening and tuning in with us today again.